One of the most basic tenets of diplomacy is adaptability. You need to be flexible to respond to evolving challenges. And right now, China is showing dramatic flexibility. It has reached out to India a day before Trump's tariffs kick in, a day before the deadline. Beijing is knocking on New Delhi's door. And not through some embassy or foreign ministry official. The outreach is from the president himself, Chinese President Xi Jinping. He has written a letter to his Indian counterpart, President Droupadi Murmu, ostensibly to celebrate bilateral ties. India and China mark 75 years of diplomatic ties today, so this could pass off as diplomatic courtesy. And yet it's more than that, because this is China, whose troops attacked Indian forces at the border and whose leaders challenge Indian sovereignty in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. When they extend diplomatic courtesies, it merits closer examination. So let's look at Xi Jinping's letter. He has called India and China, and I'm quoting, ancient civilizations and pillars of the global south. And then he speaks of a dragon-elephant tango. China, as you would know, is called the dragon, and the elephant symbolizes India. They've been locked in a border standoff for years. They were locked until last year. But President Xi Jinping now wants them to tango. What explains this complete shift in approach? This is basically China making a strategic calculation. They need markets to supply their goods and to ramp up exports. And they need this urgently to put their economy back on track, the Chinese economy. And India could prove to be that market. Now more than ever, because the US market could slip from China's grasp. Trump is imposing restrictions that could deal a blow to Chinese businesses, and India could soften that blow. That is why Xi Jinping wants to repair the relationship. He said India and China should boost trust. They should deepen ties and ensure stability. And what is India's response? Well, caution and restraint for now. President Murmu wrote back to Xi Jinping. She has welcomed the outreach, and that's that. As of now, there is no sign of a major policy shift. And it makes sense to exercise abundant caution. Look at our recent history. 4 years of border standoff, and finally a thaw last year. Prime Minister Modi and President Xi met in Russia on the sidelines of the BRICS summit. That engagement raised expectations. Such meetings tend to pave the way for resumption of normal ties. And we seem to be heading in that direction. Last month, Prime Minister Modi spoke about ties with China. He appeared on the Lex Friedman podcast, and he said that trust would return to this relationship soon. Beijing agreed.
Being partners in mutual success and making the dragon and elephant dance together is the only correct choice for China and India. China is willing to work with India to thoroughly implement the important consensus reached by the leaders of the two countries.
So India and China want to work together, but the old challenges remain. Let's take the example of trade. China's ambassador to India spoke about this today. His name is Xu Feihong. He said China is ready to buy more Indian goods. He suggested that both countries should close the trade gap. Total bilateral trade between India and China is worth more than $100 billion, but it is tilted in China's favor. The deficit is a staggering $85 billion. In 2024, India exported goods worth over just $16 billion. How can this be increased? There has been a lot of back and forth, a flurry of engagements. Indian officials have traveled to Beijing, but what is the outcome? China is yet to reduce trade barriers on India. Indian exporters face major restrictions spanning multiple sectors and products, including pharmaceuticals, basmati rice, and bovine meat. These barriers are not new. They were in place even before the clashes in Galwan. So China wants to buy more Indian goods. And if it wants to do this, it should start by leveling the playing field. It should meet India halfway on all points of contention and all outstanding issues, like border management, river cooperation, resuming pilgrimages, easing of investment rules, reopening direct flights, and lifting app bans. There's a lot of ground to cover and little progress. Here's what India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said.
What happened in 2020 was actually very traumatic for the relationship. It wasn't just the bloodshed, it was the disregard of written agreements, because this isn't a gray area we are talking about. Through this period, obviously it took us, we're still dealing with some parts of this, so it's not like the issue has completely gone away. But we also felt that the way forward was to find a negotiated outcome, and that's what we've been trying to do since 2020.
So while both sides have expressed intent, we are far from a real reset, even on the border. While the troops have been pulled back, and that's a major development given how things were before, the larger boundary issue remains unresolved. Long story short, for all the talk of mutual trust, China has shown little interest in addressing the fundamental problems. Xi Jinping's desire for cooperation is convenient. There may even be synergies on paper, but in practice, mutual distrust runs deep. So the Chinese president's outreach is not a reset, it is a reaction, driven by pressure from Trump's tariffs. This letter is not a diplomatic breakthrough, it is diplomacy under stress.
Greeting you with aloha and namaste.
I love India.
Presence, occupation of a territory by another country pertains to India, what we saw in Kashmir.
How do you see Trump's America?
Yes, the current administration behaves differently from the previous administration.
Are you saying that there are foreign powers who are trying to bring down the current government in Syria?
Exactly.
Iran, maybe Russia too.
Prime Minister Modi committed to South-South, cooperation.
Not over 50%.
Is Ukraine prepared to pay the price for that peace?
No compromises at the cost of territorial integrity and sovereignty.